I'm curious to get your thoughts. We're 11 games in. Lakers are 7-4. Watching them every single night, I'm still trying to figure out, is this a good team or is it an average team that maybe has had some little bit of luck here? No Joel Embiid, no Tyrese Maxey. This weekend they'll face the Pelicans, no Zion. They've had a couple games against Memphis, no Ja Morant, no Desmond Bane. They had Ja Morant in the first game. What do you make of the Lakers' start? I don't think it matters how they get off to a good start, because they need a good start. They've had such poor starts in the past. But is this a team in the Western Conference, kind of when you look at the West, how do you feel the Lakers, as the team is constructed right now, how do you feel they rank in the West versus the rest of their opponents?
Well, playing teams without star players is unfortunately the modern NBA.
Yeah.
That just happens. So I'm not going to devalue their record. They had a 5-game road trip already. Their record is what it is. It's hard. So I think AD has been terrific. I think LeBron, you know how I feel about that.
Sure.
I think Dalton Connect is showing the promise that he can basically replace what D'Angelo Russell is for this team medium term, because the Lakers have this D'Angelo Russell problem, which is another topic. I don't know how often he'll be able to do that, but like getting a player who can contribute in this particular draft. I mean, I think if you look in the teens in this draft, you look at Jared McCain, who was really doing well for Philly. If the Lakers could have are effectively had drafted a rotation player immediately out of this draft, that's a major feather in the cap of Rob Pelinka and his front office. And it looks like there's a chance of that happening. You don't want to make assumptions in November. It's hard to have me take them seriously, Alan, when they're so bad on defense. And, in the modern era of the NBA, last, 7-8 years, I used to believe that you had no chance, if you didn't have a top 15 defense, we were just filling time to talk about you as a contender. That's not necessarily true anymore. I think the Denver Nuggets, although they've gotten better defensively, they prove that you can win at a very high level without having an elite defense. Even some of LeBron's teams in Cleveland the second time around did not play good defense in the regular season. And when it mattered, they did. So I'm not going to sit here and say, well, if you're 25th in defense, I'm not going to spend time on you. But the Lakers' margin for error because of their defense is so much smaller. They really, really are dependent on getting great offensive production a lot of nights because they can't get stops. And I know what the Laker fan will default to. Will say, well, when Jared Vanderbilt comes back. Well, I've been hearing that for a year. I think it could matter. I think the best thing I can say about these Lakers is that I don't think that they are a superstar trade acquisition away from being a more relevant team. I think that if Vanderbilt gets healthy and they're able to get another athletic big man who can help them on the back line of their defense and take some pressure off Anthony Davis, I honestly think they could go up a level. But it's hard for me to take them out of that 6 to 10 to 12 morass when they can't get stops. And you can already see that JJ is struggling trying to find ways to get stops. You've seen it in how he's changed his rotations. You've seen how he's changed his lineup. And he's basically had a healthy team. I know Vanderbilt hasn't been there, but basically he's had a healthy team relative to he's had all the cards to play. And so I don't think it's a bad thing. I think they play very interesting, relevant basketball. I'm very much looking forward to tonight's game. Wembanyama's coming off a 50-point game. LeBron's red hot. AD versus Wembanyama. Like, that's going to be a great Friday night to enjoy. But I can't look at them the same way I look at some of the other teams at the top of the West, like Oklahoma City, or even a team like, Minnesota, who is, frankly, behind the Lakers in the standings right now. But I know that their group can elevate more than I think the Lakers have shown.
You mentioned D'Lo for a quick second. We've had a lot of D'Angelo Russell conversations. I'm curious, what's his value and what's his perception around the league right now? He's in the final year of his contract. I think a lot of Laker fans, for the most part, don't have that much confidence in him in him coming through. Probably more from a postseason perspective. The stats are going to be there, but what's the perception of D'Lo around the league? And you think D'Lo's going to be a Laker by the time we get to the trade deadline?
Well, I think for the Lakers, it's almost one of these situations like you can't live with him, you can't live without him, because there are stretches where he's just, he really is a tough watch. And Darvin has benched him, JJ has benched him. I mean, they can frame it however they want to frame it. They benched him. They took him out of the starting lineup. But obviously, when he plays well, it's transformative for the Lakers. When he started playing well last year, after he got put back in the starting lineup, it was
They went on a run.
Foundation for their turnaround. So how can you look at him and say that he's not important? And, had he his opt-out decision, I'm sure you guys talked about it a lot. I thought it was one of the more fascinating decisions of last offseason because, quite frankly, his value in the NBA isn't that high. And we know this because the Lakers have tried to trade him and haven't found a deal that they like because they, and Pelinka has said this. He said on the record, we can't find a deal. He hasn't said necessarily in reference to D'Angelo, but he said you have to
buy a house that's not for sale. I think
right.
Was his
well,
quote. Yep.
I think he should flip it around. He can't sell a house that nobody wants to buy. I think is the better way to say it.
Right.
And one of the reasons why D'Angelo opted into his contract, I mean, he can say whatever he wants. The reason he did it wasn't because he had this undying love of being a Laker, although I'm sure he does love being a Laker. The market wasn't there for him.
Yep.
He wasn't going to get $17 million if he opted out. Having said that, had he opted out, the Lakers would have been under a significant amount of pressure to re-sign him. Now, I don't know what the contract would have been, but the reason they needed to do that, Alan, is because the guy made like 100 some odd threes last year. And when he shot the ball, well, he was transformative. And if he walked out the door, they had no functional way, either A, to replace that production, or B, you have the salary slot. Because once the salary slot goes away, you can't just make it up out of whole cloth. Right. I felt they would have almost had to re-sign him. Now, maybe they postured and said no. And now that they have Dalton Knecht, and Knecht looks like he could be, filling that role, which is, a gunner who maybe doesn't get you a lot on defense, but can crush on offense, who's literally a fraction of the price. Maybe that does work out. And that's what I'm saying. But like, the Lakers still need D'Angelo Russell because they still haven't proven that they have enough offense on a night in and night out basis to make up for what they give up at the other end of the court.
What I want to get into this Spurs Lakers game coming up tonight and Wembanyama specifically. Like you mentioned, he dropped 50 in his last game and hit 8 threes. Has he been better than advertised? Just kind of give me an idea. I don't get to watch Wemby every single night. I'm with you that there's certain games on the schedule that are going to be fun. That's going to be fun tonight. Lakers, Anthony Davis, Wemby. Just what has Victor Wembanyama, from the moment that he came into the league to where he's sitting today, how has he done with some of those expectations? And what's Wemby in 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, so I have this rule, another one of my rules, starts to sound like an old man. I don't put a ceiling on Victor Wembanyama. You could tell me just about anything short of him taking flight, and I might not rule it out. And I think the thing that was so remarkable about last season was how much better he got from game 1 to game 82. Despite the Spurs really trying to protect him. For example, he is a center. He doesn't like playing center. He is a center. And they started the season out playing him at power forward. And they finally came to their senses like 25 games in, like he's a center. And he also had to embrace it too, because he doesn't like it. And once he started doing that, like you started seeing crazy stuff. And he didn't have a point guard last year. No offense to anybody, he just didn't. Mm-hmm. And so now they've gone out and they've got some point guards, and Chris Paul especially, and you're seeing some benefits from that. Over the summer in the Olympic final, LeBron said that playing Serbia in the semifinals and playing France in the finals in Paris was the equivalent of playing back-to-back Game 7s. This is a guy who's got one of the best Game 7 records in NBA history, by the way. And LeBron's saying that felt like a Game 7. So you can decide or not whether you feel that way. I was in the building. I can tell you it felt like as big of a event as I've covered. Because it was in Paris.
Sure.
Wembanyama was absolutely brilliant from the opening tip. And for him to deliver in that moment, consider the pressure. Like, he's 20 years old. He's playing. This is a once in a lifetime moment. He may win NBA championships. He may win a gold medal. He may win the gold. He may lead France to the gold medal here in LA in 4 years. But he'll never get a chance to play for the gold medal in his home country like that. And under those pressure, he had an absolutely brilliant game. And so to see him to deliver under that pressure is why I come back to, I'm not going to put any ceilings on him. Now, His outside shot is extremely unreliable. He is on a hot streak right now. He was shooting 22% on threes, and over the last 3 games, he's 20 of 37. He had made 8 of them the other night. That's why he scored 50. But his outside shot is unreliable. And here's the other thing. He won't stop taking it. And this is the thing. Like I hear, people say, and I've said, like, he's got to mix up his game more. He's got to play more on the inside because he's 7'5", and he is 7'5". I don't know why he's so focused on being 7'4". He's 7'5". But since I've talked to his coaches since he was 12 years old. Trust me, when he was 12 and 6'5" or 6'7" or whatever he was when he was 12, they told him to go by the basket. Guess what? He still shot threes. This is what he wants. He wants to be this outside shooter. He wants his game to go all the way out. And how are you going to tell him what he's doing isn't working? Right? So he still has some holes in his game. The other thing is he still doesn't get to the foul line like he could. Now, the Spurs will tell you that it's because the NBA officials don't respect him yet, that people get away with putting their hands all over him. And maybe there's some truth to that. But he's got some things he's got to round out in his offensive game. But I'm not going to put any ceilings on him. And, the Spurs are playing in a difficult Western Conference with a team that, maybe there's 3 guys on that team that will be there in 2 years or 3 years. Like Chris Paul ain't one of them. You know what I mean? They're very much still in the infancy stages of building a team around him. But, he wants to make the playoffs. He wants to beat the Lakers tonight. Like he has a growth mindset, but it's an instantaneous result mindset.